All right, so I'm new to the streaming deal, so I'm sure nobody's looking right now. But if you do come across this channel, uh, I'm gonna give you my reaction to this motion to dismiss the Kari Lake lawsuit. I made a video about this the other day, and while I really have no party affiliation, I am very interested in our country and what is happening to our country right now, and I do believe that this court case has um, a very strong um, backing from many people on both sides with this case. There's a lot of people out there that are called election deniers. That's a new term that's been made up recently for people that do not go along with what the left thinks. And while I say I have no party affiliation, I do believe in everyone's right to see what is going on with elections. I mean, an election is one of the most sacred things we have as an American. And if our votes are not being counted legally and properly, that's a big issue. And this court case, I believe, should go forward just based on proof, affidavits, witness testimony, and a lot of things. So we'll see what happens. I'm not very hopeful that this case is going to move forward. Every case that has moved forward in one court, usually they say there's no standing, which is the court's way of not even looking at the evidence. And between this case and the Brunson case coming up on January 6th of all days with the Supreme Court, there's a lot of very important things going on in this country right now, and we all need to pay attention, I believe, to what's going on. So I'm going to play this. We'll we'll see what's what with it, and we'll see what kind of BS we hear on both sides, because both sides are lawyers, and there's usually a fair amount of BS when it comes to lawyers. So let's see what happens, man. Let's play this.
Must fail. Arizona precedent has been unwavering. Ms. Lake cannot point to a single case that has allowed extra statutory claims or extra statutory remedies to be litigated in an election contest. To the contrary, courts have consistently held that strict compliance with the contest statute is mandatory to guard against precisely the kind of freewheeling claims that Ms. Lake asserts here that can prolong an election contest and subvert the strong public policy.
Wait. In Arizona, you can't file a lawsuit until the results are certified, which is why Hobbs decided to illegally try to press charges on the county commissioners for Mojave and Cochise County. There's no statute where she can actually press charges for them doing their job. They're supposed to vote if they agree to certify or if they do not agree to certify. If they said no, she was going to try to put them in jail with a felony with a felony charge. Well, if they have the choice for yes or no, how are you going to try to press charges? But anyways, this election case is not delaying anything. Everything is still on the path of Hobbs being certified. So yeah, we're 30 seconds in, and I smell the BS already. It's only 30 seconds. Let's see what goes on now.
In favor of stability and finality of election results. The court should not indulge the variety of constitutional claims in the complaint that air grievances well outside the bounds of a valid election contest.
That is not true. I don't know if we're going. I don't know if we're going to make it. I don't know if we're going to make it this whole 1 hour. Yeah, on here. The laws that Hobbs wrote were broken during this election. So that's not. Yeah, come on, y'all.
So turning now to the actual claims allowed under an election contest. In order to establish an election to set aside an election or to declare somebody else the winner, a contestant must establish either fraud or that the alleged misconduct or illegal votes actually affected the outcome.
They did, because there were over 17,000 votes that were mixed in with this drawer number 3 that they needed to, on the day of the election, all the machines that were not working in Republican districts only. Kari Lake even had to go to a Democrat area to put her ballot in. Well, there were like 70% of the machines weren't working in these Republican areas, and the ballots that did not fit, they said just put them in the drawer 3. Well, it came out afterwards. There's a witness and an affidavit, I believe multiple people as well, where the ballots from drawer number 3 were mixed in with other types of ballots. So they really have no idea which ballots were already counted and not counted from this drawer 3. So that on itself is reason to just look at the evidence. All I want is for a judge to just look at the evidence. Just look, and then make a decision.
Of the election. Here, Ms. Lake does neither. The word fraud is sprinkled freely throughout the complaint to refer to everything from the supposed injection of ballots at the Runbeck facility to the hacking of voting equipment by unidentified non-government actors. But despite the complaint's cavalier use of the term, Ms. Lake states in her response brief that she is not actually alleging fraud. Ms. Lake has thus disclaimed one of the 2 bases for election contest relief. Ms. Lake's response brief, however, fails to recognize the real significance of this concession. Anyone reading her brief might think that she has found a loophole to the election contest standards that has apparently eluded courts for over a century. According to Ms. Lake, she need not plead fraud or meet its heightened pleading standard, but need only pleads, quote, intentional conduct to set in motion the machinery of this court. But
Yes.
that is simply wrong. There
Yes.
is no end run around the legal standard for an election contest, unless a claim falls into one of 2 buckets.
All right, I'm
either
tired of
fraud
listening there. Let's
or a
move
sufficient
forward a little bit.
somehow gets him to a Lake victory. One does not have to be a mathematician to detect the circular logic of this report. Ultimately, Mr. Barris's unremarkable conclusion is that if more
Mr.
voters
Barris.
had turned out,
Richard Barris is one of the best election polling professionals in the country. And I actually listened to a little bit of this earlier when I was editing a video that I did for Aerofly. But anyways, I listened to a little bit of this, and it doesn't seem like many of their arguments are based in fact. It just seems like they're very angry and they're attacking people, and that's not how you win a motion to dismiss. You need facts and evidence. Like I said, I don't really care too much about what happens with this. I mean, I would like to see the right person win, whoever that is. But let's not attack. We shouldn't attack people. We should attack evidence. And when you're attacking people, that to me shows that you really don't have any evidence on your side. No evidence. You just like most lawyers do. And if you're a lawyer, look, I appreciate all the hard work that went into you becoming a lawyer, but you know as well as I do, I've known a lot of lawyers. They like to talk and they like to not always base what they're saying in fact.
out for Kari Lake would have received more votes. That is not sufficient to overturn an election or meet the standard here.
Plaintiff Lake has had an opportunity with her team of lawyers to go out and gather up affidavits, and nothing's changed. There are 120, 130 affidavits of voters. All but 2 of them say they voted, weren't happy about their experience. Lines might have been long.
The lines were 5 hours long. That's enough right there to overturn right there, because there were thousands of voters disenfranchised because they could not vote. They could not vote the way that they chose to vote.
Ballot might have been counted down at McTech, down at Central Count, the county Central Count, rather than.
And that building that they take all these ballots to do the recount, there's no chain of custody going from the election center to this private business that supposedly verifies and counts the ballots. There's no chain of custody with that. That right there is breaking the election laws for Arizona.
At the vote center itself, which is a luxury that's not available to all Arizonans in every county. Ronald Reagan, Party of Lincoln. And again in 2006, another 25-year extension, George W. Bush, Party of Lincoln. Why? Because voter suppression continued to exist in this country.
It does. And it's not against the people that they think it is.
The suffragettes from Seneca Falls that fought for over a century so women could vote. That's all voter suppression in these United States.
Yes.
That's what voter suppression looks like. A Republican today who claims he or she couldn't find a parking place to vote, as one of the affiants said, or I didn't want to vote the 26 days prior to the election and the lines were too long on the 26th day, or anybody who would claim that a printer malfunction at 70 out of the 223 is voter suppression is insulting to this court.
You, sir, are an asshole. That is the definition of voter suppression. If the lines are too long because you don't have enough machines working. Now, granted, the machines were working on November 7th, November 6th, November 5th. All of a sudden, they didn't work on November 8th. A person that is highly experienced with these machines came out and said publicly, the only way for these machines not to work is an error that was programmed into the machines for the machines not to work. So what this jack off is saying right now is that it doesn't matter that, a third, maybe 40% of the machines were down. Doesn't matter that it was taking people 4 or 5 hours to get through the line and then their ballot couldn't be counted or they couldn't find a parking space. That's not voter suppression. But I guarantee you this guy would say that, like they do in D.C., where they say, voter suppression, if black people can't get, IDs, so asking for ID is voter suppression. That is a hugely racist statement and is absolutely voter suppression. These arguments make me they make me so angry that there's people out there that do not want to see the just look at the evidence.
And insulting to all the men and women who went, African American men and women who
I told you who's going to bring up black people. They always do that. They always try to play the race card and try to say that, they don't know how to get IDs. So it's voter suppression because we asked for ID. You need ID to get on an airplane, to buy tickets, cashing a check. Everybody can get an ID. And if they can't, they know someone that can help them get it.
Went for hundreds of years without the vote. And that is an odious argument.
Odious.
And it is frivolous, Your Honor. Thank you.
I don't see what that has to do with anything. Is it this guy? Oh, this guy is a huge jackoff.
Good morning, Your Honor. Again, Andy Gaon on behalf of Secretary Hobbs in her official capacity. I will be very brief.
Of course
you are. I
want
to focus the court
you're
back
an arrogant
on one
asshole.
point that Ms. Khanna made, which is that plaintiff has now disclaimed any claim of fraud in this case. And she did so on pages 6 and 7 of her consolidated response to the motions to dismiss.
They have gone out largely without a hitch in terms of defendants have attempted to frame it to suit their purposes.
Yep.
This case is not about ballot-on-demand printers not being certified by the EAC. This is not the same case as Representative Mark Fincham brought. That argument is a red herring. We're not here to talk about whether the EAC gave proper certification to the ballot-on-demand printers. There have been many elections in Maricopa County. They have gone out largely without a hitch in terms of the machine problems that we experienced, or that Maricopa County experienced on November 8th. You normally don't have chaos, as Supervisor Gates characterized the election shortly after November 8th.
And what about the emails from
This
Richter
is not something
saying that there was
I believe it
chaos
was referred
afterwards?
to council as a routine technical issues.
The
by
Epic
their own
Times put that
admission.
out.
They had 70 vote centers experience failures of the tabulators where they
Yes.
were rejecting ballots
Yes.
at a time of record Republican or record voter turnout, predominantly
Yes.
with Republicans.
That is
Our
all
own
true.
evidence from sworn affidavits is that there was 132 vote centers. That's 2/3
Yep.
of the vote centers experienced the tabulators rejecting ballots, creating chaos and mayhem.
Yep.
And chaos was Supervisor Gates' word. It's not a case about flawed signature verification procedures. Defendants create that out of whole cloth in order to argue laches.
Yep.
It's not simply about defendants reporting misinformation on social media posts.
Yep.
And it's not simply about breaking chain of custody rules without a corresponding unexplained appearance of election outcome altering votes.
Yeah, exactly.
What this case is about is Maricopa County officials and the Secretary of State doing things like ignoring their own detailed procedures,
Yep.
such as testing the ballot-on-demand printed ballots before an election
Yep.
to determine whether or not those
Facts.
tabulators will function properly. It's about a
Facts.
system-wide, a systemic failure of the tabulators, which are critical to processing people's votes and taking their ballots,
Yes.
that again occurred at a minimum by their own admission at 1/3 of the voting centers in Maricopa County,
Yep.
and by our evidence, almost 2/3.
Yeah.
Those failures caused a massive disruption on election day.
Massive.
It's also
Massive.
about MTEC's own employees coming forward for no personal gain. They have put themselves out publicly
Yeah, that's
and
true.
taken great risk to
Great
expose
risk.
the truth
Yep.
at what happened in MTEC regarding
Yep.
the signature verification process.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
There was one ballot that they showed that the signature was it's not on the right line. It's not the right person. You know, there's another report that has come out. I don't know if it's going to be wrapped in with this case. What they did was they took a bunch of ballots, changed the address, mailed them out. Whoever got the ballots wasn't the actual person. Filled the ballot in, sent it back, and then when they came back in, they changed the address again so they matched the original ballot that it was supposed to match. Like, there's many people on both sides of the aisle have come out over the years. Many people on both. Let me say it again. Both sides of the aisle have come out against mail-in ballots because of the amount of fraud that can be perpetrated on these mail-in ballots. Elections should be done paper only, one day, and counted the same day, like France does and like Florida does. You would have no problem getting people to volunteer to count ballots from both sides of the aisle to ensure that it was a free and fair election. There have been many elections allegedly stolen on both sides of the aisle over the years. On both sides. The algorithm that these machines supposedly have was generated by a Democratic donor for the Republicans to use like 20 some years ago. and the Republicans used it, and now the Democrats are using it for their gain. So the whole system needs to be overhauled. It needs to go back to how it was when I was a kid, where it was one day on paper, results by 10, 11 o'clock that night, so you could go to bed and know the results. Even if your guy doesn't win or your girl doesn't win, it shouldn't take 2 weeks. And if you look at over the years how these things have gone, it only seems to go to one side. I don't know why that is. I'm not making allegations. I'm not trying to get banned. I'm just saying that it only skews to one side. And when it skews it at one side, you have people on the other side that defend the skewing. They're all corrupt. It needs to end. No more machines. No more mail-in ballots. Paper, in person, one day.
Signature verification process is systemically flawed. It allowed tens of thousands of illegal votes, which were not properly cured, to infect the system. And Your Honor, we have submitted as part of this complaint thousands of examples of that for Your Honor to see, which we'll talk about in a little bit. It's about a massive chain of custody failure.
Yep.
And not just in this election, but as A.G. Bronovich stated in his April 6, 2022 report to Senator Fan, this is a repeated issue.
That the Republican Party and the Democrats in Arizona pretty much just wiped their ass with this AG report. Now, this AG report is no friend of the people. Okay? He is very milquetoast and has no backbone from what I've seen over the years. For him to file this when he really has nothing to gain out of it, people on both sides should listen at that point. I mean, what are we doing here?
They're on notice of these. And these are mandatory requirements by statute under 16621E. The county is required to maintain chain of custody every step of the way with the ballots.
Step.
And it's a criminal violation not to do it.
That's
right.
That's
how serious chain of custody is. It's not some ministerial act. The EAC says that it is the chain of custody is one of the most critical features to ensure the integrity of the election. And what defendants ignored in our complaint is that on November 8th, if the chain of custody procedures had been followed, Maricopa County should have had an exact count of the number of ballots that they had.
Yep. Same
That's
day.
the process that the law mandates. On November 9th, they reported the amount of ballots that they had. On November 10th, mysteriously, 25,000 extra ballots appeared.
Yep.
That's an outcome determinative change for which there is no explanation.
No explanation.
And defendants have completely ignored that allegation.
That is true.
This case is also about a secret censorship operation set up by the government that would make Orwell blush. You have the federal government creating an election misinformation reporting portal specifically for state and local election officials.
Yeah, thank you, Elon Musk.
Which ties them directly with social media companies like Twitter and Facebook.
Yep.
And allows these election officials to immediately flag and take down information to censor people that they find objectionable. They call it misinformation, but this is a secret operation. This is an affront to the First Amendment, but it's more than just that.
Yeah.
Because there's evidence in the record.
It also it also breaks not just the First Amendment, but it also breaks I believe it to be the 10th Amendment and the 14th Amendment as well. I might be wrong with that, but I know it breaks more than just the First Amendment. You know, you silence someone's voice, you're playing with election outcomes. You know, Richter and Gates in Maricopa County set up a PAC to go against the Republican candidate, and they're Republicans. And Elon Musk just released info showing what this guy is actually talking about. I don't know who this guy is, but he is saying truthful things. Now you listen to the tone of the voice of the other side when they get up, how angry they are, such vitriol against any facts. They just go off on people. I get so angry. I just want a law system that's fair. Is it too much to ask for in this country to have a judicial system that's fair, to not be spied on and censored by our government, which is very, very communistic, and just have free and fair elections? I don't think that's too much to ask for.
These
I really have another point of view, but I don't know if I don't know if I can put it out on Facebook. I mean, on YouTube nowadays. I don't think I'm allowed to say it, but if if I'm allowed to, I'm definitely gonna make a video about how I really feel about some of these issues. You gotta kind of keep it in the middle nowadays, but I have some very strong opinions on some things going on around the country that are terrible. Anyways,
these officials, such as Stephen Richer, for sure, were participating in it during the campaign. And the Defendants Council made note that the Board of Supervisors is Republican, but Recorder Stephen Richer started a PAC that was directly antithetical to plaintiff Kari Lake.
yes, I just said that.
These First Amendment violations, Your Honor, move votes. And should this case proceed to trial, we will be introducing expert testimony just as how censoring information can quantifiably shift an election.
Yep.
Particularly one with this. I mean, the
Did it in
defendants
2020.
say that there's 17,000
He did it
votes,
in
that somehow
2018.
this is insurmountable. But when you have 1.6 million votes, this is, I believe, about 0.6% difference, which is a tenth of a point out of the recount territory. Now, we're not seeking a recount, but the idea that 17,000 votes is an insurmountable hurdle in an election where there are 1.6 million votes, the math doesn't add up.
Yep.
And speaking of the math not adding up, the MTech whistleblowers who came forward with sworn testimony, one of them said when he was reviewing the signatures and what they saw in the chaos in terms of rejection rates of 20 to 30%,
Wow.
he himself said that the math doesn't add up.
Nope.
With his experience in the curing of ballots. And I'll touch on that a little bit later when we get into the argument. So
Okay.
this is a motion to dismiss. And as much as defendants want to say the standard is different for an election contest as any other case, that's not true, Your Honor.
Mm-hmm.
The fact is, the Arizona Supreme Court has ruled that the motion to dismiss standard where the court is to accept all well-pled allegations is true, to draw all reasonable inferences from those allegations, and to not dismiss the case if there is any claim that the court sustained is still the standard.
Yep. I mean, how can you throw a case out when there's all kinds of evidence, affidavits,
I'd like to
witnesses?
talk about the chaos on Election Day, Your Honor, and the
Thank
evidence
you.
that we have put forward to support intentionality.
Evidence.
We have introduced the expert sworn declaration of Clay Parikh. Clay Parikh is not just any cyber expert. Among other things, he spent 8 years
That feels good on the back.
being retained by the voting system testing lab, the Pro VNV, that certified these machines for Maricopa County and
Whoa.
many others around the country.
This.
He knows these machines. He's a top cyber expert who has been at the highest levels of our government working on cyber systems. He knows the rules, what EAC certification requires. He understands these machines. He knows systems.
This back scratcher
And he
is
has given
awesome.
a
I got
sworn
it at
declaration that goes in detail
Halloween store
how
a while
Maricopa
ago,
County
and it is
violated their own set procedures,
awesome.
both in terms of the pre-testing to ensure that the debacle that happened on
I got
November
little
8th
T-Rex
doesn't
arms.
occur.
It's hard to get to my back
He
sometimes.
has gone through the procedures that are supposed to happen if there's any issue on election day. He has interviewed the T-techs and the other technicians that Maricopa County hired on a temporary basis. And as he said, you don't get, whether it's 70 vote centers or 132, as we say, you do not get that system-wide failure without intentionality.
Didn't I say that? I said that earlier. You can't have machines work one day and then the next day only certain machines not work. It'd be different if it was like 1 or 2 or 10 machines, maybe 15 machines. You know, we're talking about like 70 to 100 and some machines that all had the same issue. All of them. And it was only in certain areas that it happened.
And again, Maricopa County violated the election procedure manual on logic and accuracy
Hobbs
testing
wrote.
by using a ballot-on-demand printed ballot without testing it in advance.
Yep, that is true.
And that is at the heart of that chaos that was created on election day at all of those vote centers. You'll notice that they don't challenge, defendants do not challenge Mr. Parik's qualifications.
They can't.
That's an important point, Your Honor, particularly on a motion to dismiss. They do challenge Mr. Barris. He is a recognized pollster for the Epoch Times.
Yep.
We put forward a 10-page analysis that's based on voter history in Maricopa County and in Arizona, based on the primary turnout, and actually based on questions that he asked voters as part of the exit polling on election day.
Yep.
What did they experience in terms of the chaos on election day? He is a recognized expert. Survey data is appropriate.
Yep.
In
especially
any
exit
type
polling.
of an election contest or in other litigation. His findings of between 15,000 and 29,000 votes of disenfranchised voters is something that is based in science.
Yep.
And for purposes of a motion to dismiss, the court should accept that as true and draw all reasonable inferences from that.
Yeah.
That is outcome determinative.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to touch on signature verification because it's a very important issue here, Your Honor.
If you notice this guy's cadence of talk and manner of speech and the way he talks, just overall, is very different than the other side. The other side always seems so hostile, so mad. I don't understand why they all seem so mad. I don't get it. We live in the greatest country ever made. Ever. And they're so angry. And they're making so much money. I don't get it. I really don't. But this guy, I don't really know who this guy is. Obviously, he's, on the plaintiff side, but he's doing a very good job so far. He's easy to listen to. The other side is so hard to listen to because they're so angry, and I just don't like listening to people that are that angry, especially when they're rich. I'm broke as fuck. Do I sound angry? Nah. I can't pay my bills most of the time. At least not on time. But I'm not angry like that. I should be angry like that. And don't go judging me about my income. I got full custody of 2 kids. It's been very difficult to move my career along with the challenges that I have with both of those kids. It's very difficult being a single father in the state that I live in. Uh, I don't qualify for a lot of the programs because for some reason because I'm a guy. It seems like, but yeah, don't go judging. I used to make a couple 100,000 a year until I got full custody, and then I wound up having to take care of them full time, which I love doing. But it's very difficult to have gainful employment where you're making real good money, especially in today's society with everything costing so much. It's very difficult being a single parent. Um, Anyways,
Maricopa County processes well over 1 million mail-in ballots. Mail-in ballots were determined by the Carter-Baker Commission in 2005. That was instituted after.
Yep.
Everybody remembers
Yeah,
the
Jimmy
hanging
Carter
chads
and,
if you're old enough, from 2000, to evaluate what happened there. And the Carter-Baker Commission determined that mail-in votes or mail-in voting was one of the most likely areas of voter fraud. And this is another reason why the EAC says chain of custody is so important. And A.G. Bronovich, in his April 6, 2022 letter, specifically stated that signature verification is currently one of the most important methods to ensure the integrity of this already problematic method of voting in terms of voter fraud. The defendants raised earlier that somehow the 2020 ballots or the 2020 envelopes that were obtained and reviewed at the behest of the Senate were illegally obtained. And Your Honor, I just want to clear that up right now. Under 16168F, there was no improper obtaining of those or accessing those images of signatures. It's perfectly appropriate. 16168F says that for signature a voter's signature shall not be accessible or reproduced by any person other than for signature verification on petitions and candidate filings, for election purposes, and for news gathering purposes by a person engaged in newspaper, radio, television, reportorial work, or connected with or employed by a newspaper, radio, or television station, or pursuant to a court order. This was done. These signatures were obtained at the behest of the Senate, given to we the people, who then performed a signature review that found shocking allegations. And what's shocking about those allegations is not because we're litigating 2020. It's because what they found supports and corroborates the testimony of the 3 MTech signature verification whistleblowers.
yeah.
That's the issue. This isn't about procedure. This is about what those whistleblowers, employees of MTech, found and testified to under oath at great personal risk.
Go ahead, bud. Keep up the
And
good
you'll
work.
notice, Your Honor, the defendants just kind of gloss over the signature verification. But this is such an important issue. I'd like to walk the court through some brief portions of the testimony of the signature verification workers, the whistleblowers, and also expand on exactly why one of them said the math doesn't add up. And again, this is an area where tens of thousands of illegal votes were brought into the system.
True that, my man.
So, Your Honor, may I hand some exhibits to the defense counsel and then approach?
Can we object to that one? I've already got.
Can we object to that one? I'm an attorney. Can we object? I love hot mics. look, I'm just sitting. I was just sitting here looking on my phone. I like the Gateway Pundit. They're a very good news outlet. So is the New York Post. I don't remember this guy talking about the Runbeck whistleblower yet, but allegedly, the whistleblower from Runbeck, which is I think that's one of the processing centers, revealed that chain of custody for almost 300,000 ballots did not exist. That employees were allowed to add family member ballots without any documentation. And according to this, as well, it was almost 60% of the tabulation centers. Yeah. I'm reading it right from the county. Also, the printers and tabulators failed at more than 59% of the 223 vote centers on election day. That's not a small amount. That's more than half. Do the right thing, Judge. I know the judge is probably never going to see this, or he's never going to see it before he makes his decision, but do the right thing, Judge. You got valid arguments on both sides, but at least let the people, let the whistleblowers, let the affidavits, let the people come in and explain their side of it, so you can make a ruling as a judge, not just say, there's no standing. I agree with the motion to dismiss, which is fine. If it I'm sure it'll go to an appeal. I'm sure either decision, it's going to go to an appeal. But yeah.
The record in front of me, and so if you want to cite to something that's in the motions or the exhibits, I'm fine with that.
Yes, Your Honor.
But it's not the trial today.
Okay.
Oh,
Well,
no, lawyer man, you can't object.
Signature verification workers who submitted sworn declarations. Jacqueline Onigkeet, Yvonne Nystrom, and Andrew Myers. And what Ms. Onigkeet testified to was that there were 24 people reviewing signatures. Now, in her declaration, it's unclear whether they were all level 1 or it included level 2 and 3. But what she did say is that at level 2, there were...
We're getting coffee from the human being. You want your normal cafe latte? Okay, I'll get it for you, boss lady.
Most 3 managers. And those managers, after the level 1 signature reviewers looked at the signatures, would then take the rejected signatures and do a subsequent review.
Yep.
But again, there were only 3. The rejection rate that she testified to was that 30 to 40% were being rejected by the level 1 reviewers. Yvonne Nystrom testified similarly. She testified at her location there were 2 managers at level 2. Again, rejection rates of 35 to 40%.
Yep.
Mr. Myers, where the bulk of his job was involving ballot curing. So when a rejected ballot comes back,
you'd have to go and actually match
it goes through a curing process to determine whether or not the voter is actually who they say they are.
Yep.
And if that curing process does not result in a confirmation that it is that voter, that ballot is illegal and should not be counted.
Get out of there, ballot.
This is what Mr. Myers testified to as part of the curing process. Talked about the room where they were in. He was always told that they were going to be in for hell because they were processing about 60,000 ballots a day. Again, there's 1.3 million ballots. They were rejecting about 12 to 15,000. This is every day. And it would go up to level 2, and he was told that your next day is going to be hell.
I thought it was 1.6.
When it came to the next day, only about, at most, a tenth of those ballots came to him. So let's look at the math, Your Honor. 12 to 15,000 ballots a day are being sent up to level 2 because they've been rejected. 10% come back. That means about even taking the lower number of 12,800 or 12,000, 10,800 ballots were approved by the level 2 managers. you have at most 3 level 2 managers.
Yep.
That equates to 3,600 ballots per manager
It's not
to
too bad.
review in a day.
That's not bad.
These level 2 managers, by the testimony, have additional signatures on file to see if they can find a match. They have tools that they can zoom in and everything else.
Yeah.
If you
they do.
assume they spent just 1 minute reviewing each signature or each ballot envelope to compare,
Yep.
that would be 3,600 minutes. Well, that equates to 60 hours. Well,
Yeah.
the day only has 24 hours. So what does that mean? Well, if it's 24 hours, that's about 25 seconds.
Yeah.
And as Mr. Myers testified to, and these are his exact words, the math does not add up.
It doesn't.
Tens of thousands of ballots were being pushed into the system that should never have been counted. That is shown by the examples that we gave, Your Honor.
And if you want to see how those spikes look in real time, leave a comment, and I'll figure a way to post them. But if there's a website called Mega Raccoon or Mega Raccoon, I got it stored on my iPad, but it actually shows the ballots on a line graph and how they're it goes like the whole election day, and it shows how they're counted, and you can see like this spike that he's talking about, where in the matter of like 2 minutes, there's like 30,000 ballots for one candidate, and then like the same type of spike for another candidate happens like over the regular period, like over hours, like it normally would take, for that many ballots. But yeah, there's graphs out there that show it's amazing, and if you look at like I forget. I think it was Minnesota. There was a race. It was either Minnesota or Illinois. I have that one stored as a bookmark. But it went up like thousands and thousands of ballots, and then like the next minute it like dropped like triple the amount of ballots, and then it went back up. And a lot of these states where there's been supposed issues, like Georgia and Pennsylvania, New York and Arizona, Wisconsin over, these graphs, they're very jagged when they should be kind of flowing up. Like if you look at like Florida, if you look at some of the Florida races, it goes up the way you would expect a graph to go up. And a lot of these other states, it's huge. It's like every time one candidate gets a little bit, then the other candidate gets like 3 times the amount to overcome what the one candidate got. It's very, very interesting. But if you want to see it, leave a comment, and I'll email it to you, or I'll figure a way to get it to you so you can see it. But it's very interesting.
And what is compelling, even more so about that testimony, where we put forward 5,384 or 387 ballots, I believe. Those were 2020 ballots with names that voted in 2022. And that's an extrapolation based on the sample, a random sample that came from. That would mean when you're counting 1.3 million ballots, that number extrapolates to about 130,000 total.
Okay.
So again, these are outcome
I
determinative
don't know if I follow the math, but okay.
The defendants say that we haven't introduced thousands or hundreds of declarations from people who said they were disenfranchised and didn't cast a vote. But if we had done that, Your Honor, then the defendants would have said, well, how do you know? And it's actually precisely that situation that the Supreme Court of Arizona raised in Huggins, is that type of testimony is inherently unreliable.
Yeah.
But what we do,
It's mainly
again,
hearsay.
offer is substantial expert testimony based in science that
Who always says trust the science? So I play the Jeopardy theme song for y'all so you can figure it out. Trust the science. They're not going to trust the science this time because it doesn't go in their favor. But trust the science. Just like it's my body, my choice when it suits them. But when you decide to do what's right for your body, you don't have that choice anymore. Or when it comes to your kids and you want to make a decision that's best for your kids, you're not allowed to do that. They make a secret decision with the kids while they're at school. Or don't tell you about it. Science, my body, my choice. What a joke. It only suits, those narratives only suit them when they want it to suit them. When you want to make a decision on your body or on science, you're not allowed.
Between 15 and 29,000 voters were disenfranchised. In terms of the chain of custody, we put forward sworn testimony from a poll observer at MTech who observed all of the trucks coming in on election night where there were no chain of custody seals, no chain of custody forms.
What about Runbeck?
With all these ballots. Her testimony is also corroborated by a whistleblower at Runbeck.
There we go.
Who testified that she overheard a call from MTech asking Runbeck what the count was. Now, MTech is supposed to know that count because under Arizona Code 16621E, maintaining proper chain of custody means you know what the count of the ballots is.
Yep.
The other thing that the Runbeck whistleblower testified about is that Runbeck, which is not an authorized drop-off facility, allows its employees to cast their ballot there.
Yep.
Now, she did say it was only 50. She's very upfront about that. But the point is, there is no way to tell. And we've already shown that there is an unexplained, somehow they found 25,000 extra votes between November 9th and November 10th.
Yep.
And again, that's outcome determinative. So it's not merely speculation about a chain of custody violation. There's actual numbers there.
Yep.
And it could be far more than that. But their own numbers don't reconcile. And that's the point. And they don't reconcile in an amount that is outcome determinative. In terms of the constitutional claims, Your Honor, that were brought in this action, because this is a special action complaint and an election contest, there's nothing in the statute that prohibits those claims from being brought.
Mm-hmm.
The one case that the defendants cite, O'Donoghue, regarding the court rejecting a mandamus petition.
Huh.
Under a mandamus position, the law says you cannot have any other relief. So mandamus is your only option. The court ruled that a special action was an alternative form of relief. It's not the same thing as a constitutional claims.
That's true.
So the constitutional claims are separate.
Constitutional claim
the
is
court
very
is an
different
appropriate
than-
venue under 1983 to hear under concurrent jurisdiction, where state and federal courts can hear the same claim. And those claims are properly before this court.
This guy's doing very well. What's going on, man? Do you need to hit a reset button? Or?
I think, in conclusion, Your Honor, what we have here and what we have pled with detailed allegations, sworn testimony,
failure to
MTech's
communicate,
or Maricopa County's own employees, both from the T-Techs to the whistleblowers at the signature verification process.
Well, he gets it.
It paints and tells a completely different picture than what defendants have tried to portray to Your Honor. This, again, these were not minor technical difficulties. We have screenshots that we presented to Your Honor of text messages between T-Techs where they're exclaiming, I'm having a 911 here. There are lines out the door over 100 people. Get me coffee, please. This was a systemic failures. We are alleging systemic problems, a systemic failure for which there's been no explanation of. Maricopa County, at least, has not publicly announced any effort to get to the bottom of what happened. If you had, whether it's 70 or 132 vote centers go down to that stop people from giving votes, you would think that there would be a full investigation to find out exactly what happened. And there at least has not been anything publicly reported. Matter of fact, you just heard what they say here today is no big deal. Hey, stuff happens in elections. That's never happened before. I challenge anybody to sit and find another event in time where tabulators at 70 or 132 vote centers, fully 1/3 or 2/3 of the vote centers ever went down like they did in this election. The same thing is true with the signature verification process. This is a systemic issue, Your Honor. These aren't a few people submitting bad signatures or somebody signing for their spouse. There are hundreds of thousands, 200,000, so I want to say hundreds, so of signatures that clearly don't match. We gave one example. Your Honor can pick randomly, if he so chooses, in the 5,000 that we submitted. You can be blind in one eye and half blind in the other and see that the signatures don't match. And it's not just a few. And that's the point, Your Honor. This is a systemic issue. In terms of the chain of custody, again, it's a systemic issue. These are not minor ministerial failings. Maricopa County has been put on notice time and time again that they're not following their procedures. And those procedures have criminal penalties for not complying with it, yet they still persist. And we have shown in this election, again, that there are 25,000 unexplained votes. These are systemic issues. These are not one-off issues. And this complaint is well-pled, well-sourced, it's under oath, it's detailed, and at the motion to dismiss stage,
that's true.
Your Honor should accept all those allegations as true, draw all reasonable inferences from them, and not dismiss this case. It should proceed to trial. The people should get to see. This is about restoring trust in our election system.
That's what I
Counsel
said.
Brought up voter suppression and trying to equate that somehow this case is an affront because of what was done to African Americans in the 1800s and in the 20th century as well. But voter suppression is voter suppression.
Yep.
People are disenfranchised.
Yep.
And they were.
Doesn't matter the color.
Election.
Doesn't matter the color.
Their rights don't stop. No matter who.
The one side is always going after color. I'm so sick of it. The city I live in, boy, I tell you, it doesn't matter. I don't care about this, about color. We all bleed red. We're all supposedly Americans. I don't care where you came from. If you came here legally, you're an American. If you don't bleed red, white, and blue, then you're not really American. Doesn't matter if you're brown, black, yellow, white. None of that shit matters. Doesn't matter your gender. You're either for America or against America. That's how I look at it. For America, against America.
The kind of debacle that occurred on November 8th should never happen. There are processes in place to make sure it doesn't. And the defendants didn't follow those processes.
That's true. The own processes that they wrote.
That's the point, Your Honor. And Your Honor, may I reserve a few minutes of my time if there's any rebuttal that I would have?
Doesn't work that way.
Doesn't work that way, I know.
That before you asked. That's why you asked it so hesitant.
Well, I thought I might try. But thank you, Your Honor, for your time.
All right. Now, we already heard. I don't need to listen. I don't need to listen to the rebuttal. We already know what they're going to say. There's no claim. There was no disenfranchisement. You know, I look, and my daughter's texting me, so I got to jump. She's at school right now and is having an issue. So, Anyways, I'm going to make more of these because I like talking and I like reacting. I might go back and listen to the last 10 or 13 minutes of this and make another video. This video's already long enough, but I guess it's long enough. I don't know. But yeah, they're gonna say anything they can. Nothing. This guy was very methodical, very based in fact, with witnesses and affidavits and things to back up what he's saying. Everything the other people are saying is not based in fact. It's attacking people's character. That to me shows that they have no case. They have no valid way to defend what the other guy is saying. So, anyways, I got to get running. The school's actually not calling me. So, another day above earth, above ground is a good day. Hope everyone is taking care out there. God bless. And America's number one. We need to keep it number one. And you need to be for America, not against America. Please like, subscribe, and if you want to see those graphs, send me a note. Talk to y'all later. Bye.